Hello and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. Our weekly webinars are aimed to provide advice and share knowledge amongst business owners on key business topics and specialist areas. This is part of our service to our Smart Room members. And if you are not already a member or a BizSmart client or would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website, biz-smart.co.uk, and go to the Smart Room page. Our host joining me today is BizSmart founder Kevin Brent. But before we start the webinar, can I ask you all to use the question mark function on your screen and post any questions that you may have for Kevin, and he will do his best to answer them all at the end of the session. Thank you, Kevin. Over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Caroline. Okay, so can you and your team state your business's strategy simply? Being able to articulate a clear and differentiated strategy supported by a strong core culture that can deliver on your brand promises is key for any business want to scale up, and we've looked at some of those sort of things before. And I'm going to share with you today a simple framework, and I've summarised it from a book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish even, and he's with his team at Gazelles, and it bridges a couple of gaps. It bridges the gap between your vision and executing that vision, and it also bridges the gap between the business goals and the individual goals of the staff, the teams within the business. So that's what we're going to have a look at today. So it is a simple framework. So it can be a very powerful framework, but like any framework, it's the quality of the thinking that goes into completing it that is the important thing here. So this particular framework helps you to edit down your vision into a single action-oriented one-page plan effectively. If you run a larger business, 50 employees perhaps or more, then there is a fuller version of this in the book called Scaling Up that you can see here. And this webinar builds on the thinking from some of my previous webinars on core ideology, core purpose and vision future, gaining focus and business direction. So there's some of those there. So the gaining confidence in your business model, how to regain direction and focus, and getting control over your business. So you can refer back to these if you want some more detail into some of the sections that we're going to go through in a minute. So here's the framework itself, and we're going to take this piece by piece and have a look at it in a bit more detail as we go. The first thing that you should notice really about it is that it's broadly split into two parts, top and a bottom. The top part is for the whole business, so that's about the business goals, and we'll come to that. The bottom part is about the individual, and you can see where I've circled there the my name bit, so it gives the opportunity for individuals within the business to complete the bottom part for their own roles. So in that way you can start to see already how it bridges the gap between the business goals and the individual goals within it and translating it to what it means for them. So just start at the top right. You'll notice that it's got that it's quarterly. The idea is that we do this quarterly. So we set the overall things. Some of these are annual, never change. Sorry, some of these things are set and they are part of your core ideology, your core culture that don't change. But the idea is that we review this quarterly because the actions come down to a quarterly basis. So again, this helps to then make sure that this is something that is lived rather than just something that is completed once off, put in a drawer, and hardly ever sees the light of day. Okay, so looking then, we've got the three columns here, the core values, the core purpose, and the brand promises. These should be, if you've been taking part in the previous webinars, this should be a simple case of actually completing, just transferring from that work into here, so you've got it summarized. But the core values and the core purpose, we've talked about, these are kind of your forever things. So what really drives you in a business. What are you really about? So why not what the core purpose is not about what you do so much as about why you're doing it. But again, so you can look back to find out more about those and how you might test whether you've got good ones or not. The brand promises come largely from your value proposition. Again, we did a webinar on that before, so refer back to them. You're normally looking to pick out 3 or 4 strong brand promises here. So these are things, that top row are things that largely once you've agreed them and you've set them, that they don't change. So similarly, and within that, within that is the stretch goal as well. So I've just missed out on that one. So the stretch goal in that box, sort of in the middle there, that is a 10 to 15 year horizon. So that's where we're starting to now say, okay, well, where are we trying to get to? We did some work on our envisioned future, how we want the business to look like, and we pulled out from that a 10 to 15 year stretch goal. So that should be something that you think is going to be a challenge, something you really want to achieve as a business, that is really worth aiming for. It can be target driven. It can be, so for example, it can be about sales, it can be about market share, whatever it might be from that point of view. It could also be more about position in the marketplace. The perception that people have about you might be that we're going to be the number one, or we're going to be the Nike of the cycling industry, or something along those. So you've got different types of stretch goal that you can have. And if you've got a really good stretch goal, then it's something that you think there is a 50% chance, 50-50 chance of you succeeding. If you really work hard at it, if things come right, that there is a sort of 50% chance of you achieving it. So it's not going to be too easy, but equally it's going to be something that is achievable. So then what we're doing, if you've clearly defined that, then we're trying to bring that back to perhaps more of a 3-year horizon. So then if we take the next row down, we've got the strategic priorities now, and we're looking first of all at 3-year key thrusts. And again, the pictures that I've got within there are from some of the other webinars where you can get some of these. So you've got in the 3-year thrust, we're asking ourselves to look at what the business can look like in 3 years. So we've set our stretch goal for a 10 to 15 year horizon. Where do we want to be? Where do we think is reasonable that we can get to in a 3-year point that is en route to that 10 to 15 year stretch goal? So that you might be looking at in terms of people, products, customers, might be from the money side, geographic locations, that kind of type thing. So we use a planning tool, we call it a smart web, and I'll do a separate webinar on that at some point, but we use that helps people to look on a 3-year horizon and look at the key anchors of the business, the key aspects of the business. So we might well start with saying, well, we want to be at this level of sales. What does that mean from the product's point of view? What does it mean from the customer's point of view? What does it mean from the staff? How many staff do we need we're going to be delivering that many products, that many customers at that point? What does that mean from the staff? What does that mean from the operations point of view? What else do we need? So we start to go around the circle in a way, around the web like that, to try and pull that out at the 3-year point. But if you've done that piece of work already, then you'll be able to pull out some 3-year thrusts there, and then you can start to say, okay, well, let's now have a look at the next year. Where do we need to be in 1 year that is on that path to the 3-year plan? And we can start to define that in a little bit more detail, and we can pull out things that are critical for us to achieve in the next year, that if we don't manage to achieve those, then we're not going to be getting towards our 3-year point. So then you've recorded those here, and then we start to look at the quarter and we say, okay, well, what's going to be the focus for the next quarter, and what are going to be our priority actions for this quarter that we want to hit, that are going to get us en route to that 1 year priority. So that's the top half of the 1-page plan, and if we've done that well, we've started to get ourselves a roadmap of where we want to go. Now what we want to do is then take that down to bridge that gap down to the individual people within the business. So each person in the business can take that roadmap and they can start to work out what it means from their role. So if we've got the business overall priority and critical path, what does that mean for me in my role, or if we're doing it by a team, what does it mean for this particular team? So what are my annual goals, targets and key performance indicators that I need to set myself and hit in order to support the business in achieving its goals? And for those of us that run a business and it basically is us running it, then clearly that's us doing that. For those of us that have got a team of people, then ideally we're asking each of those people, certainly the key people, to have a look at doing that. So that's then that first bit as to what it means for me in my role for the year. Now we start to look at the quarterly actions, and what I'm after here is people to start saying, well, what are this again? If that's the annual, but that's the quarterly focus of the business, what am I going to do that is going to this quarter is going to do that? Now you notice I've left the numbers, the 2 boxes further down, and I put the actions here first. In some respects, it might make more sense to set some critical performance indicators, some actual numbers first, and then the actions that you're going to hit that. But if I found that if we start with the numbers, people get confused on what that means. So we're starting with the actions, but linking them back to the critical numbers below. So what actions am I going to do this quarter that's going to help deliver on that? And these critical numbers, what we're after here, we've got two specific types of indicators here. And again, the principle here is that we're synthesizing down into 1 or 2 key things that we're going to focus on. So we're not trying to do everything and end up doing nothing particularly well. We're trying to focus on 1 or 2 real key things for this quarter that is going to really help drive the business. When we get to the end of that quarter, we're going to have a look and we're going to decide whether we've done it really well, or whether we've done it okay, or whether we've done it not so well, and whether we're going to need to continue that focus for the next quarter, or whether we can actually carry on to something else and set a new priority, not forgetting this first one, but actually move the key focus onto perhaps another aspect of the business. So what you can see is we're after 2 key indicators, and it's what is the single most quantifiable achievement for that person or team in the next quarter that will help the business to achieve its vision. That's what we're after here. And one of these ideally should be to do with people. That's the first box there, and the other one should be to do with process. And why is that? You may well ask, and that comes simply really that to achieve the vision that we're looking at doing here, any business needs people doing stuff. To put it really simply, years of business training enables me to describe things as stuff, but you need people doing stuff. So you've got the people side of things, and the stuff side of things is the process. So let's have some measures for people, and let's have some measures for process. And the 3 main groups of people that we've got to look after, and they're listed on there, are staff, customers and shareholders. And the 3 main types of processes that we do in any business, we either make or buy, but we do stuff, we might sell, and we've got the record keeping. There's 3 key types of processes that we would do. So what we're looking for ideally here is that you might have some measures around your staff or your customers or your shareholders, or you might have some, and you might have then some around the processes that you've got there. So just to give you some ideas then on those, if it's staff, you might have staff satisfaction engagements. If it's customers, it might be things like Net Promoter Score. These are just examples. If it's shareholders, then it might be more about the cash in the business, the accounts receivable. It might be about the value of the business itself, those sort of type things where we're trying to get to. If it's around the processes, then it might be from the make or buy, it might be the speed of those processes, the cost, the quality of them. If it's selling, it might be some of your pipeline, your sales metrics type ones, or your lead generation KPIs, and around record keeping it might be data reporting, how accurate it is, the speed of it. So you'll have specific ones of those. I don't want to labour the point on those, but the idea, as I say, is that we pick out one critical number, one KPI for the people side of the business and one for the process side of the business each quarter. And so don't worry too much about it. The important thing in a way really is that you actually set yourself something. Once you've started doing it and you get into the habit of setting something, you can refine that as you go. But the most important thing is that you actually start doing it. And you'll see as well that we've got four. We've got an ideal, a good, an average, and a poor there, and that is just simply just trying to get people away from just setting one number and you either hit or a miss. It's really to get you to start thinking about, okay, well, if that's what we're trying to do, we're trying to get our days receivable down to 30 days. That would be classed as good. What would be classed as ideal? It would be ideal maybe if it was 25, or it would be okay if it was 35, and if it was 40 or more, it would be poor. Because if you start to do that, then you can move yourself along from average to good or to ideal or whatever. But equally, you may well use this for some people to look at the review point of view, and maybe even incentive type of things. You might have a different incentive or reward in some way, depending on whether they've hit the good level or the average level or whatever it might be. So that's just a bit of a side really on those. So that's what that is all about. So that's really it. That's the framework itself hopefully in a nutshell. As I said at the beginning, it is a really simple framework. I may have overcomplicated it in some of the ways that I've explained it, but it is a really simple framework, but it is the quality of the thinking that goes behind it, but the discipline of actually getting us to think around all of these various parts of the framework will mean that we're starting to really starting to get on top of what we need to do. And the discipline of actually then setting ourselves the annual and the quarterly targets means that the execution side of things will make it much more likely that we're going to execute in a way that is going to achieve the vision that we want to achieve. So it's bridging that gap, as I said, between the strategy, the vision. We'd love to be here, but actually think about the execution, what needs to be done to get us there. But it's also bridging the gap between some people, and we get quite a few businesses where they've built a team and it's felt that the team haven't really understood what the vision of the business is. They do their day job, and this helps to do that as well, so that you've got everybody seeing what the business core values, core purpose, what the goal that we're trying to achieve the business are for the business objectives, combined with, okay, well, what does that mean for me? So what do I need to do in my role? So hopefully, done well, reviewed quarterly, is much more likely to make the stretch goal achievable. There we go.
Great, thank you very much. Let's see if there's any questions for you. Thank you, Kevin. Your first one is from Sarah, and she asks, should everyone in the business complete one of these?
Sarah, hi, thank you. That's a good question. In an ideal world, then yes, everybody would. What we normally say with people is, well, as the business owner, let's start there, and let's get that done, and then perhaps roll that out to the senior management team, depending on, obviously depends on how big the business is and how many people are in the business, but maybe not roll out to everybody at once, but take it sort of one layer at a time. But yes, ideally, everybody is completing and going through this exercise.
Okay, thank you very much. And Louise asked the next question, why quarterly priorities rather than monthly?
Okay, again, good question, because quite often what we see is people have set an annual goal, and then they have them or objectives and targets, and they have them break them down in monthly. The idea of the quarterly is so that we give ourselves a chance to work on it and to deliver something that is going to make a difference over that period. Typically, a month, it's quite hard to make a real change within just 1 month. So therefore, the quarter is great, and it allows the business to set a quarterly theme, and everybody start to get behind that theme. That's what that's about.
Okay, great, thank you very much. And you've got another question come through from Simon. Can it be used for new starters?
Absolutely, and in fact that is one of the ways that people do use this, because again it helps somebody getting on board very quickly with an onboarding process to understand the company's vision, objectives and direction, but also again to start to say, okay, well, my onboarding, where do I need to be in 3 months' time? And you might well use that as part of a good onboarding process to be able to then get, when you get there, get to that 3 months, say, okay, well, have we got where we both think we should be at that period? So yes, absolutely, it can be a great simple tool as part of an onboarding process with somebody new.
Okay, lovely. And you've got another question, this one from Paul. I struggle with mid-long-term planning. Any tips for sticking at it?
Struggle with mid-long-term planning. So let me see if I understand your question right. So absolutely, Paul, and I think that's probably the subject for another webinar. I mentioned that we use something called the smart web that we use to help do that, and that is a really good tool to help to actually to bring that long-term aim back. But if we want the long-term, typically we would start say it's a great exercise for people to do. Imagine a journalist is writing an article about your business in 10 or 15 years' time. What are they writing? How are they describing your business? If you get a vivid description, description about how your business looks like, just do it in bullet point form, how you want somebody to be writing about your business, you'll be able to tease out of there probably a stretch goal, that where you want to get to. And so that's a good exercise to do that. And then the 3-year planning is around saying, okay, so for each of those key aspects of the business, so whether it be for sales, whether it be for products, customers, for the types of staff that we've got, where are we going to start? Where do we want to be at the 3-year point? So this is for the short to mid-term planning. So we've done the long-term a little bit there. Now you're on sort of mid-term and trying to then pick off what does that mean. So if I need to make sales of this product and I need to have X number of customers at that point, what does that mean in terms of the staff that I've got? What does that mean in terms of the other aspects of how I need the execution, how I need to deliver that? How am I going to get there? What's the plan to get there? And you start to go around the circle in a way and fill that in. But probably that's a very brief overview. We probably need a longer run at it, Paul, if you want to go in more detail for that.
Okay. Paul also asks, will you be emailing the template to everybody?
Yeah, I think we can do that. We'll email a template out with the recording after the webinar.
And the presentation, yeah. And next question from Liz. If we need to revisit our core values and core purpose, which is the best webinar to listen to?
Okay, the best webinar for core values and core purpose is let me just get the precise name of it. It's How to Regain Business Direction and Focus. And you can find all of our previous webinars on YouTube. If you search for BizSmart or you search for that title, you'll probably start to bring up the others, and we can probably send out a link again when we send out the stuff after this webinar. You can also get them on our app. If you download our app, then there is a link there to all the webinars, and they're all nicely categorized by whether they're strategic or whether they're for marketing or sales, the different aspects of that.
Okay, great. I think that's all your questions at the moment, but I will be sending out a copy of Kevin's presentation and his contact details, so please do email him if you have any further questions. But before we close, just a quick reminder, this webinar is part of our service to our Smart Room members, and if you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access the archive of webinars, then please do visit our website, biz-smart.co.uk, and go to the Smart Room page. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.